Okay, this week we're going to be talking about a touchy subject, body weight. Someone online recently asked the question, body weight, does it matter for walking the Camino? I used to think it didn't. But let me tell you a personal story this week, and maybe it'll be helpful, coming right up. Okay, so body weight for some people can be a pretty touchy topic, and it's a fairly common topic in Camino circles. People are planning to walk their Caminos. Do I need to be fit? How fit? And people get worried about training, and they worry about their body weight and if they're going to be able to make it. So there are a couple of trains of thought here, and I've been an advocate for both. So let me tell you a personal story. And this is coming from a fat guy who has walked the Camino, okay? And the pros and cons. So way back in 2015, when I planned to walk my first Camino, I had fantastic plans about losing weight. At the time, I was 61 years old. I weighed about 91 kilos, which for those who are still in the 20th century is about 200 pounds, I think. And my height is about 175 centimeters, which is about 5'7". So I was obese. I was BMI about 30. And I had great plans to lose weight because it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me to walk carrying all that extra weight. We all worry about the weight in our backpacks, but sometimes, if we're not super fit and we tend to be a bit overweight, we forget that most of the weight we're carrying is our bodies. So anyway, I'd always been fairly fit during my life. And I planned to train, and I kind of did and didn't. And anyway, the upshot was I ended up walking my first Camino from Saint-Jean, 800 Ks, way overweight, 91 kilos, 200 pounds. Now, what actually happened? Well, in the build-up to the training, I was serious about the training and trying to lose weight. Well, more serious about the training than the weight loss. And I actually overtrained. And I guess being overweight exacerbated that problem. And so I actually caused myself Achilles tendonitis during training. And I actually pulled my back out. So that very first Camino in 2015, I arrived in Paris as my port of entry, overweight, unfit, and I hadn't actually been able to walk very well the week before due to the damage in my back, and I certainly hadn't been able to carry a pack for a couple of weeks due to my Achilles tendonitis. And so what happened was I had my Achilles tendons injected with cortisone to reduce the inflammation, and I had very strict instructions from my doctor about taking painkillers and anti-inflammatories. And anyway, how did that first Camino go? I loved it. It was everything that I expected. But I tell you what, gee, did I make it hard? Being overweight and unfit just meant it was so much harder than it had to be. So how did I get through it? People often say, you get tendonitis when you're walking the Camino. You started with it. Every day I would have to ice my tendons 2 or 3 times if I could. So I had to learn how to ask for little bags of ice in the cafes and things like that. I had a rigorous routine of stretching. I would stretch as soon as I got up to ease my back, ease my tendons. I would stretch 5 or 6 times during the day just to loosen up the tendons in my back. I took painkillers and anti-inflammatories all the way for 40 days, every 4 hours. This was under medical supervision or instruction. So I wasn't being stupid. And I tell you what, I knew as soon as those anti-inflams and painkillers were wearing off. So I was able to take them every 4 hours, and I think the anti-inflams I had to have with food. But at about the 3-hour point, oh gee, things would start hurting, and I'd be hanging out for the 4-hour point where I could have a snack and take some more painkillers. At the end of the day, it was a routine of icing, stretching. I would stop through the day a couple of times, take my boots off, lie down with my feet raised. There's that great acronym RICE for dealing with lower leg injuries, inflammation. What is it? Rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So I was doing all that, every few hours through the day. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. But it was painful. And I can remember my physio and the various sort of doctors I spoke to before I went. And I said to these guys, look, I'll build up my strength and fitness and so on as I go. I'll start off easy. How many people have said that? I'll start off slow and I'll get fit and lose weight as I go. Oh, don't fool yourselves. And anyway, the medical specialist said, no, it ain't going to get better. And I can remember talking to my physio. And I said, Pete, it'll get better as I go, won't it? It'll loosen up. And he went, no, it'll get worse as you go. Because the worst thing you can do for this tendonitis is to walk. And it did get worse as I went. And I was able to drop in to see physios occasionally. I was walking the Camino Frances, so the infrastructure there is great, and I was able to see medical professionals. I think I saw a physio about 4 times. I can remember in Ponferrada, Leon, Azua had a great one. I got a great massage in Othebrero. But this would help ease things a little bit, and they would help restrap my ankles and things like that. So I had to learn how to strap my ankles. I started to get shin splints. My knees were going. Why am I telling you this story? Well, because I fooled myself. I thought I could walk a Camino perfectly well, being, if you take the BMI categories, obese. And I fooled myself. I made it, but I caused myself permanent damage in the process. My knees were giving out with arthritis. My tendons are still no better. I really wrecked my body in trying to do it. So did I learn my lesson? Of course not, because I made it. I proved that you could do it, overweight and unfit. And so I went and did it again in 2016, this time with my wife, Pat. And Pat also has foot problems. She's got plantar fasciitis. So we decided to do a short Camino of 150 Ks-ish. We kind of did a hybrid. We dropped into Fontebedon and walked over by the Cruz de Ferro, and then we jumped forward a little bit to Othebrero and did a bit there. And so she had little samples of some of the country hill bits, mountains, and then we started our Camino proper from Sarria. So all up, she walked about 150 Ks. I coped with that one, and it was a bit of false sense of security because Pat walks very slowly because of her bad feet, and she's a lot smaller than me and not very fit. And so the whole pace was slower, and that was easy. I'd done it again, hadn't I? I'd proved that you can walk a Camino overweight and unfit. So I hadn't learnt my lesson. I did it again in 2018 because Pat decided she'd love to walk a full Camino, and we walked together from Saint-Jean. And again, walking with Pat, it was a bit slower than I would walk, and I managed, but I was still doing, the painkillers and the anti-inflammatories, trying to see, the odd physio when we could, and Pat needed to see physios as well. And so I coped. And the only downside was on that third Camino, I think it was just after Tria Castello, walking down a hill, I turned around to see how Pat was going, and snap, I tore a meniscus, which is, I'm sure, partly due to being overweight, because I was still 91 kilos, 200 pounds for a 5'7", 175 centimetre guy. That is technically obese. So not good. Would I walk a Camino again overweight? No, not that overweight. And so I'm not going to fool myself anymore. I just wanted to share with you, some of the impact of walking severely overweight. You're going to damage your body, and you're going to make your Camino a lot more painful and less enjoyable than it could be. I mean, I was always limited to the amount I could walk each day. My comfortable limit is about 22 kilometers. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in miles. Once I go over about 30, I really start to hurt. And a couple of days I went to 32 and my tendons were just, shredded. not literally, but I couldn't have walked the next day. So, walking a long day meant I had to have a day's rest with icing and physio and all kinds of things. So it's just stupid. So what's happening on my next Camino? Well, I'm planning to walk one, if everything works out okay in 2022, and I would dearly love to walk the VDLP, the Via de la Plata, which is longer and it's more remote. and it's 1,000 Ks, and it has longer stages. So you can't walk those short stages of 20, 22 Ks as much. You know, there are some longer stages, so I've got to be fitter. And I was kind of worried that I'm going to be burying my head in the sand about this whole weight and fitness issue again, and, you know, would I really make it? And then a funny thing happened. Not that hilarious, but it's funny how things do happen. During the lockdown, I've been doing a lot of gardening, and my weight went up to about 100 kilos. What's 100 kilos? I wrote it down, 220 pounds. And I was doing some heavy gardening work and lifting some big timber sleepers. And I thought, I got a twinge. And I thought, I know what that is. I've had that before. It's a hernia, an inguinal hernia. And so I went along to see a specialist, and I went to my GP, had ultrasounds, went to see a specialist a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yep, you've definitely got another hernia. And he said, now look, you're a bit overweight, a bit, BMI 33, at 100 kilos and 220 pounds. He said, ideally, you should lose some weight for this surgery to be effective. He said, what can happen is that if you're a lot overweight like you are, it's pretty hard to reduce the strain on that weakened part of the body. You know, they put a patch on it. He said it's likely to happen again. He said it'd be much better if you could lose a little bit of weight before the surgery. So I said, okay, doc, give me a target. And his target was 85 kilos. And I thought, yeah, I've got a reason to lose weight now. See, if I've got a clear purpose to do something and a bit of a burning platform, then I'll do it. So I said, you know, how long can we leave it before the surgery? He said, 3 months, you'll be fine. It's not a serious one, but you do need the surgery. So I said, fine, I'll book it in late February and I'll be 85 kilos. So I came home and set out a weight loss program. And this is not supposed to be a diet video, by the way. And I thought, how much weight have I got to lose each week to hit 85 kilos by the end of February, and I'll get the surgery done. And then I'm thinking in the back of my mind, this is pretty good actually, because this will get me motivated now for weight loss for my next Camino, which is in 2022. Anyway, I'm an ex-military guy and I've got ADD, and if someone kind of sets me a hard target, I kind of go for it a bit bullet a gate. So I thought, yeah, I can lose the weight. So without getting into diets and stuff, all I've done is reduce the amount that I eat. I have 2 meals a day now. I try to reduce my carbs. I've given up alcohol. I drink, 3 bottles of wine a week normally. And the weight's falling off. I'm losing 2 kilos a week, which I don't know what those in pounds, sorry. And I'm well on target to hit 85 kilos mid-February for my surgery. But what's this got to do with Caminos? Well, I'm thinking, I wonder what I used to weigh. Because I was in the military for 20 years and really fit. And I'm going back over old records and things, and I'm going, did I really weigh that light? And I'm thinking, well, 85, that's still overweight. I think it's below the obese category, but it's still overweight. And I've determined that actually I'd like to walk my next Camino at 75 kilos. What's 75 kilos? That's 165 pounds. And I'm thinking, I've now projected my sort of weight loss program, my chart, and I reckon I could hit 75 kilos by my next birthday, which is in mid-May 2021. So it's funny how things come about, isn't it? Because with a medical issue, not a serious one, thankfully, but a medical issue requires me to lose weight. That's got me motivated now to just keep that weight loss going for my next Camino. And so I am definitely going to be down to 75 kilos, 165 pounds by my next Camino. I have forgotten what that kind of weight feels like or looks like. Who knows, I might go lower. I'm not going to go stupid lower, but I'd just like to feel better, and lighter. So what is the moral behind this story? If you've got a weight problem like I have, and as I mentioned, I was up to BMI 32, I think, for my first Camino. During COVID, I hit, I think, BMI 35. That's obese. How did I get like that? It's not rocket science. I eat too much and I drink too much. Okay, that's how you get fat. I love carbs. I love wine. I'm probably one of the few people who either does not lose weight or even puts weight on when I walk a Camino. I just love the food and the wine. So it's very simple if you want to lose weight. Eat less. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm having a big breakfast, toasts and eggs and bacon and beans and all that kind of stuff. I'm making that my main meal. I'm having a fairly light lunch. Today I think we've got laksa. And then basically I don't eat dinner. I have a bit of fruit or a piece of cheese or something like that. And that's, the weight is just falling off. So I'm not here to talk about a particular diet. You obviously find one that suits you if weight is your problem. But the point was, do not fool yourself. If you are significantly overweight and thinking about walking your first Camino, it's going to make it harder for you. Simple as that. We all obsess about our backpack weights. I've planned my backpack now for my next Camino. I'm down to 6.5 kilos without not counting food and water. And we obsess about, do I put this in? It weighs 10 grams, and do I put this in? Lose some body weight if you want to carry less weight. That's what I think has hit me this time. That if I actually want to walk a longer Camino, if I want to enjoy it, and if I actually want to get to the end, it's not necessarily about fitness so much. For me, it's about losing a significant amount of body weight. And so I'll be losing 25 kilos, whatever that is in pounds. So I'm going from, let me look on my note here. If I'm going from 100 kilos down to 75 kilos, 25 kilos is from 200 pounds down to 165. And that, I just can't imagine walking a Camino being that light. It'd be so easy. I'll be skipping along. So anyway, all of that came around from an online question saying, who cares about weight on the Camino? I do. I've walked 3 Caminos fat, and I hurt myself doing it, and I caused myself permanent damage. So if you're overweight like I am, thinking of walking a Camino, think twice about it. Maybe this can be an incentive for you to lose a significant amount of weight. Thanks for watching. Sorry that was a bit long and a bit personal and a bit of a touchy topic, but somebody suggested I make a video on it because it is a bit touchy and sensitive, and people do get concerned about it, so I thought I'd share my story. Thanks for watching. See you next week.